day, everyone. We are the group 5, and today we will going to talk about the anthropological perspective of self and the Filipino people. But before we proceed to the discussion, let me first introduce to you the members of this group. I am Ferlyn Jaranilla.
I am Jeivert D. Parreno.
Joyful Gonzalez Camato. Okay, so let's begin with the three objectives of this lesson. At the end of the lesson, the student must have first, identify the cultures that influence Filipinos' way of living. Second, explore oneself based on the anthropological perspective. Third, analyze how this influence are manifested in real life situation.
And going back to our topic about the anthropological perspective of self and the Filipino people. And first, what I'm going to discuss is about anthropology. So, what is anthropology? Anthropology is the systematic study of humanity with the goal of understanding our evolutionary origins, our distinctiveness as a species, and the great diversity in our forms of social existence across the world through time. So, what is the focus of anthropology? The anthropology focuses on understanding both our shared humanity and diversity. Anthropology as nature and nurture. So, what is anthropology as nature and nurture? Anthropology considered human experiences as interplay of nature which refer to genetic inheritance which sets the individual's potential and nurture with regards to the socio-cultural environment. And next is culture. So what is culture? Culture is the patterns of learned and shared behavior and beliefs of particular social, ethnic, or age group. Culture is learned through active teaching and passive habitus. Culture is shared. Shared means that it defines a group and meets common needs. Culture is pattern. Pattern means that there is a recourse of similar ideas. Related cultural beliefs and practices show up repeatedly in different areas of social life. Culture is adaptive. Adaptive which helps individuals meet needs across variable environments. And lastly, culture is symbolic. Symbolic which means that there are simple and arbitrary signs that represent something else or something more.
The self as embedded in culture. Culture is a defining feature of a person's identity, contributing to how they see themselves and the groups with which they identify. A person's understanding of their own and other identities develops from birth and is shaped by the values and attitudes prevalent at home and the surrounding community. So, our culture is greatly contributes to the development of our beliefs and values. For this reason, both cultural psychologists and social anthropologists believe that culture affects one's personalities. In addition, gender differences also influence the personality traits a person possesses. Self perception influences how we think about the world, our social relationships, health and lifestyle choices, community engagement, political actions, and ultimately our own and other people's well being. How we see ourselves shapes our lives and is shaped by our cultural context. There are two concepts of self that is viewed by different societies. So first, this is egocentric self. So what is egocentric self? Egocentric self is concerned with the individual rather than society. For example, if a child wants very much for something to happen, and it does, the child believes he or she caused it to happen. So second, it is socio-centric self. So what is socio-centric self? Socio-centric self is concerned with one's own social group or dependent on social situation. For example, the mass media routinely validate the view that one's own country is right or ethical in its dealings in the world. Henry Tafel and his colleagues in 1970s. So, Henry Tafel and his colleagues in 1970s developed social identity theory from a series of studies, frequently called minimal group studies. It was developed to explain how individuals create and define their place in society. According to the theory, three central psychological processes are: first, social categorization; second, social comparison; and third, social identification. So, first, by determining what is social categorization, it is refers to the tendency of people to perceive themselves and others in terms of particular social categories. That is, as relatively interchangeable group members instead of as separate and unique individuals. For example, one can think of a certain person, Jane, as a feminist, a lawyer, or a football fan. Second is social comparison. Social comparison is the process by which people determine the relative value of social standing of a particular group and its members. For instance, school teachers may be seen as having higher social standing than garbage collectors, compared with university professors. However, school teachers can be seen as having lower social standing. And lastly, social identification reflects the notion that people generally do not perceive social situations as detached observers. Instead, their own sense of who they are and how they are related to others is subtly implicated in the way they view other individuals and groups around them.
The Filipino culture. Culture of the Philippines comprises a blend of traditional Filipino and Spanish Catholic traditions, with influence from America and other parts of Asia. Filipinos, on the other hand, adapt to the norms and practices that foreign countries bring with them. As a result, we have established our own identity and culture while acknowledging our role and previous experiences. Though the changes takes place through the process of adaptation, assimilation, acculturation, and amalgamation. Adaptation is a process and time it takes to a person to assimilate to a new culture. It is not always an easy transition. Living in a new culture can be a difficult process. A person may feel a variety of different sensations. For example, one may feel frustrated because he or she cannot communicate, or angry because certain culture norms do not make sense. Assimilation is the process whereby individuals or groups of differing ethnic heritage are absorbed into dominant cultures of society. It involves taking the traits of the dominant culture to such a degree that the assimilating group becomes socially indistinguished from the other member of the society. Example: during the Spanish Inquisition, when Filipinos accept the Roman Catholic Church as a religion, even though in private, there are still many people practice their traditional religion. When the process is at its most extreme, assimilation occurs wherein the original culture is wholly abandoned and the new culture adopted in its place. Acculturation is a process through which a person or group from one culture comes to adopt the practices and values of another culture, while still retaining their own distinct culture. For example, people who travel to foreign lands where the culture differs from their own are likely to engage in the process of acculturation in order to learn and experience new things, enjoy their stay, and reduce the social friction that can arise from cultural differences. Amalgamation refers to the sociological process by which two different cultures blend together and a new culture originates. This process is also referred to as the melting pot theory, since when two different ingredients are made to melt in pot, they both lose their distinct individual identity and a new substance is formed with a different flavor. For example, the Mexican or Chinese food we find in India is different from the food actually available in Mexico and China. The Mexican and Chinese cuisine has blended or amalgamated with Indian food culture. The culture of the Philippines makes it different from rest of the world. So here are the 12 things you should know about Filipino culture that sets them apart from any other nation on the planet. Filipinos are very resilient in times of calamities and catastrophes. Filipinos always manage to rise above the challenges. Instead of wallowing, they manage to pick themselves up and smile. Filipinos take pride in their family. In the Philippines, it is family first. So whether you are part of the immediate family or you belong to the third or fourth generation, you are treated as family member. Sometimes, even the closest of friends are considered family too. Filipinos are very religious. In all corners of a Filipino house, you can find brazen images of crosses and other religious paraphernalia. They go to church every Sunday, or sometimes even twice or three times a week. Filipinos are very respectful. From the moment they are born into this world, they are already taught how to be respectful by using these simple catchphrases po and opo, words that end sentence when addressing elders. They have a culture of pagmamano, which is where they raise the back of the hands of their elders to their foreheads as a sign of respect. Filipinos help one another, more popularly known as bayanihan. Filipinos help one another without expecting anything in return, so that undertaking their tasks and responsibilities become much easier. Sometimes this is called community spirit. Filipinos value tradition and culture. For Filipinos, traditions in their home and in their family are important. They usually set aside a specific day for a certain celebrations like festivals, birthday parties, reunions, and many more. And of course, every gathering is dedicated to keeping up with each other over sumptuous food. Filipinos love to party. Yes, Filipinos love to hold celebration and fiesta. Bacolod has its Mascara Festival. Davao has its Kadayawan Festival. Marinduque has its Moriones Festival. And our very own Iloilo has its Dinagyang Festival.
Filipinos have the longest Christmas celebrations ever.
Even as early as August, you can hear Christmas songs and jingles being played in malls or in the restaurants in the Philippines. The mood becomes festive, with many people shopping and in good spirit. Christmas celebration lasts until around the first or second week of January. Filipinos love to eat. Aside from breakfast, lunch, and dinner, Filipinos manage to squeeze in a little meal in between too. Whether they eat every hour or every 3 hours, they savor every bite. They do love going to buffets. Filipinos love to sing. This is the reason why karaoke has become so prevalent. As part of their recreation, Filipinos spend some quality time with their families or friends singing or belting out new and old songs. Filipinos love art and architecture. Filipinos have a penchant for bringing art and architecture to a whole new level. They love to design creatively, to think intuitively, and have a passion for anything different and unique. Being Filipino means togetherness. We will always be together with family and friends. Basically, anyone we considered a loved one is a part of our family. We will never leave their sides, no matter how hard the journey is, how long it takes, or how rough. We will always be there for someone. So now that we are done in discussing the anthropological perspective in the Filipino people, so you will be answering the 3 reflections to test your knowledge.
Reflection. Since Filipino culture was influenced by different people around the world, does it become an advantage or disadvantage in yourself and the whole community? Why? Identify some other that influence yourself. In not less than 50 words, describe yourself as a Filipino.